What is good, fam? If you got a life outside of Sanctuary, job, family, school, whatever the case may be, but you still want to absolutely dominate in Diablo 4, this is the build for you. The LOCUST POCUS Season 10 Spiritborn build absolutely melts any Torment 4 content and allows you to crush bosses with only 2 to 3 Chaos Uniques. So what I'll do is I'll break it down for you guys chapter by chapter, and I'll show you how this very versatile Spiritborn build can do anything in Diablo 4 Season 10. Now, as far as Chapter 1 goes, we have our main abilities, and the first ability that we have here is Touch of Death. This is our main source of DPS. Next up, we have Thunderspike. This is for some utility and mobility that the build needs. Then we have Ravager. This gives us our minimum ferocity stacks for attack speed, and it also gives our core ability, Touch of Death, a teleport. Then we have Toxic Skin. This will give us some poison damage shenanigans. And then to follow that up, we have Armored Hide to give us that unstoppable proc to save us from CC. And then finally, we have the Protector to come down, smash the ground, and pull all the enemies together like our Vortex ability, and it simply just helps with wave clear. So that does it for Chapter 1. Let's jump over to Chapter 2 for our main aspects. Now we're going to start off Chapter 2 with our first aspect on our two-handed weapon, the Insatiable aspect. And the Insatiable aspect gives Touch of Death Locust Swarms a huge additive damage bonus. To follow that up, we have the aspect of Moonrise. This gives us increased attack speed and a basic damage multiplier. And then on our second ring, we have the aspect of Redirected Force to give us a huge critical strike damage multiplier. And then on our amulet, we have the aspect of Adaptability to give us another damage multiplier to our basic abilities. Well, that does it for Chapter 2. Let's jump over to Chapter 3 with the Spirit Halls next. Now moving over to Chapter 3 with the Spirit Halls, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. So first off, we have the Gorilla Spirit Hall as our primary Spirit Hall. This gives us Thorn damage and a constant uptime with Barrier. But not only that, all of our skills now become Gorilla skills. And this will synergize very well with the Harmony of Ebewaka and the Heshi Ikasangi, but I'll talk more on that in just a bit. Now moving on to our secondary Spirit Hall, we have the Eagle. And we get a vulnerable damage multiplier, and we get a guaranteed critical strike every other attack. And this also synergizes very well with the Harmony of Ebewaka. Like I said, short and sweet with Chapter 3. Let's move over to Chapter 4 for the Chaos Unique and Regular Unique prep and setup. Now for all the casual players out there, let's go over the Regular Unique setup first. Now, we have the Rod of Kepeleke. This is the first unique that you want to get your hands on. This will make Touch of Death a basic skill. Now this will occupy our two-handed weapon slot, so you want to free this up as soon as possible with the Chaos Unique version of the Rod of Kepeleke. Moving on to the helmet slot here, we have the Harmony of Ebewaka. Now this will make all of our skills the base type of our secondary Spirit Hall, which is the Eagle. And this is what enables that trifecta damage multiplier when it comes to the Spirit Halls, which I was talking about previously. And the third and final regular unique that you want is the Heshi Ikasangi. This will turn the Protector into that Vortex monster that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Additionally, all of our skills now are Gorilla skills because of our primary Spirit Hall, so we benefit from the additional skill ranks that we get to Gorilla skills from the Heshi Ikasangi. Now the number one recommendation here for all of my casual players is start off with the Rod of Kepeleke and the Harmony of Ebewaka. Both of these you can farm from Gregoire or Duriel, and you can always add the Heshi Ikasangi at a later time. Now for all my casual to blaster enthusiasts, the ideal Chaos Unique armor setup goes as follows. We're going to have the Heshi Ikasangi in the helm slot. Then we're going to have the SWC in the chest slot. This gives us a huge damage multiplier to our potency skills. Then we have the Harmony of Ebewaka in our glove spot. And as for our pants armor piece, we have the Sepizontek. This will give us a huge damage multiplier to basic skills. And Sepizontek also gives us an unlimited charge reset on our evade with Thunderspike. And then finally for our boots, we have the Rod of Kepeleke. Now always remember guys, don't rush, it's not a race, just simply have fun, and that's the whole idea of this build. Now let's jump over to Chapter 5 with the Mobalytics Planner. That way I can explain in more detail how this build works, and I can also show the versatility of this build. So to start off Chapter 5, we have the Mobalytics Planner, and we're also going to go over the key passives in the Paragon Board. We have everything here from the blaster version of the build, the casual version of the build, the leveling version of the build, and we also have the build variants. But let's move over to the skill tree here, and I'm going to scroll down real slow so you guys can see. You could also pause the video if you want to see how I invested every passive skill, and we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Now as for our key passives here, we can go Noxious Resonance or we can go Prodigy's Tempo. If you want a smoother feeling build that absolutely just flows, go Prodigy's Tempo. But my personal flavor pick for key passives is Noxious Resonance. We're going to be doing a lot of critical strike damage. There's an overpowered version of this build, and there's also a non-overpowered version of this build, but those crits really hurt with Noxious Resonance. Again, it's a flavor pick, guys. The world's your oyster. Choose as you may. The build is so versatile, you can go either or. Now over to the Paragon board, I'm going to go over all the glyphs and the boards respectively. As for our first glyph here, we have Spirit. This gives us a critical strike damage multiplier. Then we have Bane. This will help us double the damage of our poisoning effects. Absolutely insane. Now moving over to the third glyph here, we have Talon. This is a flex pick glyph. Now if you do choose Talon, you have a critical strike damage multiplier to Eagle skills, and our skills are Eagle skills because of the Harmony of Ebewaka. Now you can also go Colossal to get a damage multiplier with resolve stacks, or because our main Spirit Hall is Gorilla, you can also go Revenge. So that every time that you're doing Thorns damage, you're getting a damage multiplier. Now moving up to the fourth glyph here, we have Canny. This gives us a non-physical damage multiplier. And then finally we're going Fitness. Now this gives us resource regeneration, but what we want there is the legendary bonus that gives us another critical strike damage multiplier. Now moving on to the boards, we have Convergence. This gives us an elemental damage multiplier, and it works really well in tandem with Canny. Now moving over to the right to the third board, we have Viscous Shield, and this gives us a damage multiplier when we have Barrier. Now moving up to the fourth board, we have Sapping. Now this will give us a damage multiplier all the way up to 60 times based on the spirit type that we use for our abilities. And with the Harmony of Ebewaka, we're using all three abilities at once, so we get that damage multiplier quite quickly. And Sapping also provides us some resource regeneration. And then moving up to our final board, we have Revealing. Now this will allow us to knock down vulnerable enemies with Thunderspike, and we get a damage multiplier doubled whenever we deal damage to crowd-controlled enemies. So that does it for the Mobalytics Planner, the key passive, and the Paragon board. Let's jump out of Chapter 5 straight into Chapter 6 with the Gems and Runes next. Now on to Chapter 6, we're going to keep this short and sweet. We have Emeralds in our weapon for critical strike damage, and then we have Amethyst in our armor for barrier generation. Then as for our Amulet and our rings, we're going whatever gem necessary to give us the resistance that we need. Now as for the runes, we're going Pox End so that every time that we're spending our resource, we get a guaranteed critical strike and overpower proc. Now next we have Tam and Cax or Quacks, I'm not sure how to say that, but every time we cast a non-channeled core skill, we get a 100% damage increase. So short and sweet with the gems for Chapter 6. Let's move over to Chapter 7 for the Mercenaries next. So you guys know how we do this with the Mercenaries. Nothing's changed since the beginning of Season 10. We have Subo and we have Variana. Subo will give us that sweet critical strike damage multiplier. And then Variana gives us attack speed whenever we use Touch of Death. Now seeing as we're on this page already, let's talk about the Tempering and Masterworking next. As for Tempering, all you simply want on your two-handed weapon is Touch of Death Swarm duration. You also want Potency damage as a secondary temper. Both of these definitely help our damage scale. Now moving over to the Amulet and the rings, all you simply want is some sort of damage multiplier, whether it be potency or critical strike damage, and then the secondary temper affix that you want is the Protector cooldown. Now if you're going to key passive Prodigy's Tempo, you don't necessarily need Protector cooldown. However, because this build is so versatile, if you're switching between builds and key passives, you definitely want to have that on there just in case. Now as for Masterworking, what you want to get the crit on is definitely the Touch of Death Swarm duration. Now of course I didn't get it here, but the build still slaps. And definitely try and get that triple crit on potency damage as well. So that does it for the Tempering and Masterworking of Chapter 8. Let's move over to Chapter 9 for the Chaos Perks next. Alright guys, now this is where things get really interesting. Now as for the Chaos Perks for the overpower version of the build, you want Brawn over Brains. This is a huge damage multiplier to overpower damage. And we also get a fat increase to our maximum life. Then we go Crazy Brew for some attack speed. And then we're going Alacrity for some more attack speed, but remember our core ability is also basic ability, so it benefits the same way. Now this is our flex pick Chaos Perk. You can go Accelerating Chaos for the overpower version of this build. This will help us with some cooldown reduction that we don't have if we're not going Prodigy's Tempo. Now I will be showcasing this version of the build in the gameplay section. Now this version of the build is simply for fun and those casual to blaster enthusiasts. It keeps you super tanky and you have a huge damage output still. But for anyone that wants the glass cannon version of this build, this is how you do it. You simply swap out Brawn over Brains for a Beast Cornered. And then you swap out Crazy Brew for Marred Guard. Now what you also want to do, simply because we don't have that maximum life anymore, is you want to swap out that Zan Ruin. And we're going to put in the Q Ruin so that we have a little extra survivability with Earth and Bulwark. Nothing else changes. And the build works as follows. You're going to see millions and billions of damage pop up on your screen. Now next there's a Mobility Speed Demon version of the build. And all you simply need to do is put Brawn over Brains back into our slot where Beast Cornered is. Then we're going to bring Combined Strikes over to our Marred Guard section. And finally, we put Unstable Power in the spot of Accelerating Chaos. Now, one thing I want to mention here is we don't get that damage multiplier because Touch of Death is not a base core skill. However, we're always Thunder Spiking with our third attack because of Sepizontek. And our third attack resets our core skills. And how this build works is you simply spam Evade and Touch of Death. Call down the Protector whenever you can, and you're going to see the damage fly. Now, the Beast Cornered version of the build is really good for bossing and pushing the pit, whereas this build is very good for any kind of speed farming that you want to do in the Hell Tides or Infernal Hordes. Alright, so that does it for Chapter 9 with the Chaos Perks. Let's move over to Chapter 10 for the section you all came here for, the Gameplay Showcase. Alright, here we are in Chapter 10 for the Gameplay Showcase. It's running back in Pit 70, and we should be able to run this in roughly 2.5-3 minutes. And again, we're running the Brawn over Brains version of the build. So that Sepizontek is really giving us some easy mobility here. Allows us to just spam Evade. Now you can go Banish Lord Talisman too. I just found that Sepizontek really helps speed up the mobility of the build. Oh, we might have lost some time there. It's okay. The build's still cooking. Okay, not too bad. A little less than 2.5 minutes. Easy stuff. Well, there you have it, guys. Whether you're a casual or a blaster player, this build has so much versatility and it's so much fun to play. Well, that does it for me, guys. Stay safe out there. I'm your boy Jadiro. Sign up for now. Peace.